Hold on to your nuts and butts because it's Week 6 NFL review time, baby. Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia. It's time for another episode of Brady Wins, because it never matters what Tom Brady does or how he plays, he always wins. In this week's edition, Brady's average completion traveled just 3 yards in the air. 64.3% of his yards came after the catch. He had a brutal interception just before halftime and a second obvious interception overturned. He also benefited from a terrible 15-yard taunting penalty on his game-sealing drive. What a player. Brady did his usual routine in the first quarter where he stood in a clean pocket throwing to comically wide-open receivers. This helped give Tampa an early 14-7 lead. Tampa scored again before halftime thanks to screens and checkdowns from Brady to go up 21-7. After some more breathtaking screen passes, Tampa took a 28-7 lead late in the third. Philly did fight back, scoring 15 straight points to make it 28-22 with 6 minutes left, but once again the refs came in to save the day with a terrible 15-yard taunting penalty. Brady sealed the game on an inaccurate throw to his classy friend Antonio Brown on 3rd and 7 that a Philadelphia defensive back didn't bat down for some fucking reason. Jacksonville versus Miami. They did it, folks. They finally did it. The Jaguars won an actual NFL game for the first time in their last 21 attempts, and I'm so glad it came against Tua Tagovailoa and his piece of shit agent who reported me on Twitter to help get my last account suspended. Suck my dick! Miami jumped out to a 13-3 lead late in the first half, and everybody thought consecutive loss number 21 was on the way. Then Trevor Lawrence threw a gorgeous touchdown to Marvin Jones that the CBS cameraman fucked up to make it 13-10. Jacksonville took a 17-13 lead off another touchdown, but Miami answered to go up 20-17 with 10 minutes left. Jacksonville kicker Matthew Wright tied the game at 20 with 3:40 left. Then Miami had 4th and 1 at their own 46 with a minute 49 left. Brian Flores decided to go for it instead of punting. The right call in my opinion, but it backfired as Miami didn't convert, giving Jacksonville great field position. Trevor Lawrence then led a Tom Brady-esque 11-yard game-winning drive, capped off by a 53-yard game-winning field goal to get his first career win. The win was a grind, but we all know Urban Meyer loves grinding. Sure, Jacksonville still hasn't won a game on American soil since September of 2020, but baby steps, people, okay? Cincinnati versus Detroit. I still don't know if Cincinnati is good or not. The fact that they waltzed into Detroit and kicked the shit out of a terrible Lions team 34-11 doesn't change that. I will say this is a major step up from years past where Cincinnati was just as bad as Detroit is now. Perhaps Burrow is the real deal and all Zach Taylor needed was a little more time. After all, Cincinnati would be 5-1 right now if their kicker didn't choke multiple times versus Green Bay. I'm still hesitant to say that they're legit, but what I do know is real is Burrow's connection with Jamar Chase. Burrow can't throw deep unless it's to Chase, and defenses know this, but the two's connection is so on point that it doesn't even matter. Contrary to popular belief, I actually like Burrow and am rooting for his success. I want to see new faces emerge, no offense to Michael Jackson, across the league besides the usual suspects we normally get. Detroit, on the other hand, is fucked. I was too nice to Jared Goff before. He stinks, but at least his girlfriend is super hot. Indianapolis versus Houston. What do you want me to say about this game? A week after a heartbreaking choke job to Baltimore, Indianapolis thoroughly dominated a terrible Houston team 31-3 to improve to 2-4. Carson Wentz was great in his game manager role. He completed a few deep throws on shot plays, but largely stayed out of the way while Jonathan Taylor carved up Houston on the ground. Davis Mills regressed back into a pumpkin after a great performance versus New England, and it's pretty clear he's not the long-term answer for Houston while they figure out what to do with Deshaun Weinstein. I'm happy to see Wentz have some success again, and it looks like his 2020 was a blip on the radar. Frank Reich seems to get the best out of him. I wish my wife could do the same thing for me. Baltimore versus the Chargers. Well, it appears all the hype Justin Herbert and Brandon Staley have gotten lately has to be put on hold as LA got bent over and violated by Baltimore in this 34-6 loss. I honestly have no idea what the hell happened here. LA had one touchdown drive, which was just 27 yards and set up by a Lamar interception. Other than that, they got shut out on their other 9 drives. This should never happen with a QB as talented as Herbert. Maybe now we can take a step back and stop saying he's on Mahomes' level. As for Baltimore, their defense was amazing, and while Lamar didn't have a big day passing-wise, he led a dominant ground game that picked up 187 yards and ran for 3 touchdowns. Say what you want about Lamar, but this Baltimore team is a motherfucker to deal with in the regular season, and he could possibly be in line to win his second MVP before turning 25 years old, which would be Hall of Fame type stuff. I'm pretty sure I just ended racism forever by saying that. God, I'm such a fucking hero. LA Rams versus the Giants. Do you hear that sound? That's Joe Judge fapping to all the mistakes his team made in this embarrassing 38-11 home loss to the Rams. Daniel Jones unsurprisingly looked like ass, throwing 3 interceptions and not leading a touchdown drive until his team was down 38-3 late in the fourth. Matthew Stafford Stafford continued his monster season, throwing for 4 touchdowns, including a nice no-look, no offense to Helen Keller, touchdown to gritty hard worker Cooper Kupp in the 4th quarter. Man, can you imagine how good Jerry Rice could have been if he had Kupp's work ethic? Wow. Green Bay versus Chicago. Oh, Bears fans, I feel for you. You've had to watch Aaron Rodgers take a massive dump all over your faces for the last 14 years. Odell Beckham might enjoy that sort of thing, but I don't blame you guys one bit for hating Rodgers, as he represents everything your team hasn't had since the 1940s, a bona fide superstar quarterback. For a minute, though, it looked like maybe Chicago would have the upper hand, as Green Bay's offense looked awful in the 1st quarter and Chicago took a 7-0 lead. But with Rodgers and the Bears, it's only a matter of time before he wakes up. Green Bay scored 17 unanswered points to take a 10-point lead going into the 4th. Justin Fields was great on both of Chicago's touchdown drives, but for the most part, he was not impressive, taking a bunch of ill-timed sacks, an arm punt interception, missing Allen Robinson for what could have been a huge touchdown, and just generally looking like a rookie. Although I'm not a fan of Fields' game, he looks like Ohio State Mitch Trubisky to me. I'm not going to make any final judgments until he has a better coach than Matt Nagy. We all know how this game ended. Chicago got some momentum to cut the lead to 17-14 with 9 minutes left, but Rodgers reminded everybody who the boss is by leading a 75-yard touchdown drive, capped off with a 6-yard touchdown run to pump the lead back up to 10 with 4.5 minutes. It wasn't just the touchdown which ended the game, it was Rodgers reminding every Bears fan across the world that he owns them, and as long as he's in the NFL, they will never be truly safe from his wrath. Kansas City versus Washington. Patrick Mahomes threw for 397 yards and 2 touchdowns, while his offense once again scored over 30 points in this 31-13 win over Washington. Sounds like a guy that's been figured out by the league, huh? Mahomes' standards are so insanely ridiculous that we have morons saying teams have the blueprint to beat him. Newsflash, the 2021 Chiefs currently have the best offense in the league, and Mahomes leads the league in touchdown passes. His interception total has been inflated due to some bad drops by his receivers. This is not to say he hasn't made some dumb throws, which he has, but even with those occasional dumb throws, he's still a top 2 quarterback in the league and terrifies every defense he faces. The only thing scarier than Mahomes is how scary bad his defense is, which is the reason Kansas City is only 3-3 right now instead of 5-1. As for Washington, their defense continues to be the most disappointing unit in the NFL this season. In more important news, I asked my boss if I can have the rest of the month off so I can emotionally recover from the most recent Jackson Mahomes controversy. He said, of course. Thank you. Minnesota versus Carolina. This game looked as though it was going to be a pretty nondescript double-digit win for Minnesota late in the 4th quarter, but this is Kirk Cousins' team we're talking about here, so shit is never that simple. With an 8-point lead late in the 4th quarter, Minnesota drove the ball to the edge of field goal range, but eventually punted, which set the stage for what was probably the best drive of Sam Darnold's career. Starting from his own 4-yard line with 2 minutes left, Darnold threw a gorgeous 41-yard dime on 4th down. A few plays later on 4th down, Darnold threw another gorgeous pass to convert. On the play after that, Darnold found cop respecter Robbie Anderson, seriously look it up, for a touchdown and then completed a 2-point conversion to tie the game at 28. You will never believe this, but Kirk Cousins drove his team into field goal range to win the game, but his kicker missed the kick. Oh my god, that's so crazy. But have no fear, the best anti-vax quarterback in the NFL is here. And in overtime, Big Dick Kirk threw a nice 27-yard touchdown pass to win the game for Minnesota. Arizona versus Cleveland. Oh no, how will Arizona do without professional Ryan Gosling impersonator / MILF hunter Cliff Kingsbury on the sidelines? Well, pretty well actually. Arizona raced out to a 20-0 lead in the first 25 minutes thanks to some turnovers off of Baker Mayfield. Cleveland actually looked like they could get back into the game when Mayfield threw a beautiful Hail Mary touchdown to make it 23-14 going into halftime, but it was fool's gold. Arizona shut out Cleveland in the second half while adding on 2 more touchdowns to coast to a relatively easy 37-14 win and improve to 6-0. Las Vegas versus Denver. How would Las Vegas do without famous email user John Gruden as coach? So far, the answers say pretty damn good. Derek Carr bounced back from a few bad performances to put up one of the best statistical performances of his career. Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake combined for 2 rushing touchdowns, and Las Vegas coasted to a 34-24 win that wasn't as close as the final score suggests. Denver, on the other hand, is exactly who we thought they were. They've dropped 3 in a row ever since their 3-0 start, where they played a glorified FCS schedule. I always say to never trust the Raiders, and this win doesn't change that, but at least Las Vegas has an above-average quarterback to give them hope every week. With Teddy Two Gloves and Drew Lock, Denver is almost guaranteed to lose whenever they aren't playing a bad team. Denver fans better pray Aaron Rodgers joins them next year, or else the next 5 years are going to look like the last 5 years. Dallas versus New England. What a fucking whirlwind this game was. It looked as though both teams were going to put up 40 points early as New England took a 14-7 lead after 1. But the second and third quarters were mostly boring and and Dallas took a 3-point lead entering the fourth, which is where the fun really began. Dallas kicked a field goal to go up 20-14, then Mac Jones led a go-ahead touchdown drive to give New England a 21-20 lead with 6 minutes left. Dallas then missed the 51-yard field goal. Jones then threw a brutal pick six to give Dallas a 26-21 lead with 2:36 left, but Jones then responded with a 75-yard touchdown pass on the very next play, and then a 2-point conversion to give New England a 29-26 lead with 2:11 left. Unfortunately for New England, that's where the fun ended. Dallas converted a 4th and 4 and then got 24 yards on 3rd and 25 to set up a 49-yard game-tying field goal, which of course they made since Mac Jones still hasn't learned how to will opposing kickers to miss these do-or-die kicks. New England got the ball to start overtime, but thanks to some shitty play calling and a missed face mask on a 3rd down incompletion, the Patriots punted. Dallas would then win the game 35-29 on a 35-yard touchdown pass from Dak to CeeDee Lamb. Pittsburgh versus Seattle. Good lord, I just ruined my 5th different set of underwear thinking about this Ben Roethlisberger-Geno Smith matchup. I honestly don't even know if Pete Carroll knew Russell Wilson wasn't playing, as Wilson was too busy doing super cringe no-huddle impersonations on the field pregame that an NBC camera and microphone just so happened to catch. This game was pretty boring for 3 quarters, then Seattle tied the game at 17 in the 4th. Pittsburgh kicked a field goal to go up by 3 with 1:30 left before Seattle tied the game as time expired to send it into overtime. Shout out to DK Metcalf for one of the dumbest decisions ever in not going out of bounds to save time on Seattle's last drive. In overtime, the teams traded punts before Geno Smith got strip sacked deep in Seattle territory by TJ Watt to set up Ben Roethlisberger with an absolutely legendary -3-yard game-winning field goal drive. Good for Ben, he deserves the lucky bounce. He's had to deal with so many haters who are just jealous of his unmatched ability to make women feel comfortable. Tennessee versus Buffalo. Arguably the best game of the week. It was pretty boring for about the first 20 minutes until very large and very fast human being Derrick Henry broke off a 76-yard touchdown run. Josh Allen threw 2 touchdowns in the last 8 minutes of the first half to give Buffalo a 20-17 halftime lead. This included a 29-yard touchdown pass to Fox News enjoyer Cole Beasley, who was so open you'd think Tennessee's cornerbacks were afraid to contract something. Buffalo's offense continued to roll in the third, taking a 31-24 lead heading into the fourth, where Tennessee hit a field goal to make it a 31-27 game with 10 minutes left. Buffalo was forced to punt, then Tennessee went on a beautiful go-ahead touchdown drive, capped off with a 13-yard touchdown run by Henry. They go up 34-31 with 3:11 left. On Buffalo's final drive, Allen got the ball inside Tennessee's 10-yard line, where on 4th and 1 from Tennessee's 3 with 22 seconds left, Sean McDermott decided to go for it instead of settling for a tie. Tennessee stuffed Allen on 4th down to win the game. It's easy to say it was the wrong